I'm filming down here today. As usually I'm just sitting on my chair right before my altar, but because I finally got to actually clean out all of this stuff down here, and I think it looks quite cute, I thought, why not film down here? So let me know if you like the previous background better or this one, and yeah, let's get right into it. Hey everyone, my name is Ella, welcome to my channel. So for today's video, I'm actually discussing something that is a little bit more difficult for me to talk about, I suppose, because it's a little bit more controversial. Many different people have different opinions on this topic, and I did take notes, and I actually did a poll on my Instagram story the other day, Friday I think, asking my followers, basically you guys, what you think. Can you be in two religions at the same time? Because I've been getting some questions lately on Instagram and on the YouTube comments, and the question was, can I stay Christian or can I stay in the Islamic religion or whichever religion really, and also be Wiccan? So essentially, can you be in two religions at the same time, specifically religion plus Wicca? Now, I'm not going to give you a yes or no answer to this. I'm going to give you different opinions, some different pros and cons, sort of, I guess, and then you can make up your own mind and make this decision for yourself. Now, religion is a really personal, individual thing to begin with, so I don't want to sit here and tell you what you should do and what you should not do. I'm just here to give you some of my opinions, some of the people's opinions that I actually talked to on Instagram, and yeah, maybe help you out if you're struggling, if you're a little bit confused, and hopefully this video will help you with that. So to start this off, of course Wicca is different from witchcraft. Now this is going to be really important later on. Now if you don't know the difference between Wicca and witchcraft, I have a video on that that I made not too long ago. I'll link it down below in the comments. Not in the comments, in the description box. And you can go check that out, because I do think sometimes people get that confused. But yeah, I'll get into that a little bit later. So I've had a few messages, right? And what I have gathered is that people have a connection to Wicca, and they have things that they really cherish and love about the Wiccan religion, but they're still close to the religion that they, for example, grew up with, and they don't want to necessarily completely leave that behind. So in this case, it would be a question of merging two religions, Wicca and, for example's sake, Christianity, right? Now, in the first case, merging religions, I think, is what most people actually do if they do practice two religions, and I think it is also the most common way of doing things. So you're essentially creating something unique, you're essentially creating your own religion in some ways or another, right? So you're taking your base religion, your childhood religion, or whichever, and you're taking parts of Wicca and incorporating that into this other religion. Or the other way around, you're taking Wicca as your base religion and you're incorporating religious parts or religious aspects from another religion or spiritual belief system. This could actually be considered eclectic as well. I'm an eclectic Wiccan, which means that I actually do sometimes take little bits of belief system or practices from different religions, for example Buddhism, and I incorporate that into my own religious path, though I am mainly working with traditional Wicca. Now the thing is with incorporating these two religions is you have to be comfortable with that, right? And that also means you're not feeling guilty, you're not feeling ashamed, or that you're, I don't know, for example, if you're Christian, that you think you might be sinning or something like that, right? So you have to be comfortable. When people ask me, can I be a Wiccan but still be Christian? It usually comes from a place of, I know Christianity doesn't necessarily work with witchcraft. Let's be real here, right? So then there's this confusion. Can you mix those two? And then again, there's also the confusion part with witchcraft and Christianity, and not necessarily Wicca. But yes, it really is about your individual preference and if you are comfortable with it. Because there's no use in practicing two religions if you're not comfortable in doing so. If you're feeling kind of icky and like not really sure about it, and it's not making your heart happy, then I would advise you against it, simply because that's not what religion is supposed to do, right? Religion is supposed to make you feel free and inspired and to grow as a person and become your best life version. Now, that can't happen if you're feeling uncomfortable. Now, if you're feeling uncomfortable because you're not quite sure about it, knowledgeable enough about those two religions, for example, and you're just not sure how to go about combining these things, and you actually have no problem with the overall idea of combining religions, it's just you just don't know how to. Again, very individual, you can do it as whatever way you want to. I've heard of Christian Wiccans. They would work with Mother Mary and Jesus as their deities, sort of, I guess you can say, or they are monotheistic Wiccans, so they would still work with only one deity, or in this case it would be God, I suppose, but then they still practice other Wiccan things, or they would go by the harm none and the threefold law. I live in Latvia, so we actually have a very large amount of paganism going on here still, because the Latvians used to be pagan, and they still have this paganism really integrated into their culture. And I've seen a lot of Christians here that still incorporate these pagan ways that are very similar to Wicca into their everyday life. For example, here they celebrate a festival called Yani or Ligua. Now, I'm probably pronouncing that a little bit wrong, my Latvian is not top-notch, but basically these people are obviously not Wiccan, but they're incorporating these things that, like our midsummer Litha, it would be what they just celebrate throughout summer, and then they still believe in their Christian ways. They're just celebrating a rather pagan holiday. That doesn't mean that now suddenly they're pagan or no longer Christian, it's just that they're incorporating these two elements, combining them and making it work for themselves. Once again, this is really a very individual approach. That's why I'm so big on telling you, I'm not here to like tell you yes or no. So I really hope you guys are here for that, I understand that. I'm not here to judge, I'm not here to give you any strict rules that you should follow by. You create those for yourself. So another way that you could, for example, incorporate Wicca into Christianity, or I'm just saying Christianity all the time because it's the one that I have been surrounded by most, so I'm just more familiar with it, but of course don't let that stop you from taking any other religion that you might be working with, right? Another way, for example, would be you're a Christian but you practice Wicca, and you would, for example, incorporate these other deities into your practice. Or what you could also do is the opposite. When you're practicing Wicca, you could incorporate the Christian, I don't know, saints, for example, right? Or archangels into your practice. I think that is one of the most common techniques and something that is very easy, I think, to incorporate, because archangels and deities are not too far off from each other. The principle is relatively similar. So, and then there's the second situation in which people misunderstand what Wicca is, and they like the concept of witchcraft, they like the idea of it, of magic, but they are Christian, right? And they would like to incorporate these things into their practice, but they don't actually believe in the Wiccan principles. They're more interested in the witchcraft part of it. Now, there I think comes where I'm always saying I think there's a confusion between what is Wicca and what is witchcraft, because Wicca, you do believe in the principles of Wicca. You believe, for example, in the Wiccan Rede, you believe in harming none, in, you know, the sacred nature, you believe in those kind of things and those kind of principles, and that is somewhat different from witchcraft, and again I have an entire video on it. So if you don't believe in these principles, then maybe Wicca isn't for you, but instead it's witchcraft that you would like to incorporate. Now, this is a little bit different because witchcraft is a practice, it's not a religion. So therefore, it's not an issue of incorporating or merging two religions. It's your religion plus practice, which in some ways makes it easier depending on your religion. Of course, then there's also the issue that some of the religions, especially the more Abrahamic ones, might not necessarily like witchcraft very much. And once again, this is a personal thing, this is an individual thing. If you are completely against witchcraft and you see it as something bad, then it's probably not for you. But then again, you're probably also not watching this video. So if you are here watching this video, then it is because you are interested in witchcraft or Wicca and you're not quite sure how to go about these things. Now, in that case, once again, if you are Christian and you would like to incorporate witchcrafty things, then it's kind of a very similar principle. You would work with the archangels, most likely. You would work with God instead of several different gods and goddesses, of course. You would incorporate more of these principles from both of these different religions plus practice. You wouldn't have to neglect your own religion. So essentially with witchcraft, it could be considered easier because you're not including the principles of another religion into your own practice, which is usually where these ideologies are quite different from another, and then there's confusion, right? Because with Wicca and witchcraft, Christianity, for example, one is monotheistic, one is polytheistic. How do you merge those two? And then you might have to choose. But again, that's an individual thing. For example, alright, you're Christian and you're Wiccan, but you believe in the god and goddess, so you're polytheistic, but you also work with the archangels, so that's your Christian part pulling into Wicca, right? Or the other way around, you might be believing in only one god, so monotheistic, but you might also incorporate spirit elements instead of deities into your Christian practice. Now then there are things that within witchcraft that are not related necessarily to Wicca that Wiccans of course sometimes practice, because you know, Wiccans often practice witchcraft, but for example, as a Christian you might read the tarot, which is somewhat a witchcrafty kind of thing to do, or you might use other forms of divination, or let's say you're working with crystals. You're basically using these elements that could be considered witchcraft and you're incorporating them into Christianity. Personally, I don't think that makes you a bad person, but again, I'm not here to give judgment or anything like that. It is such an individual thing. I know I'm repeating myself, but I really want to bring it across to you. You're the one who has to feel comfortable about this. I think my channel is very much about, are you comfortable? Good. Are you not harming anyone? Good. So of course, then there's also the question, what about family members or, you know, your community, if they're not really okay with it? I will make a video on closet witchcraft or closeted Wiccans and how to go about those things. But again, if you are only incorporating pieces from Wicca into your normal religion, then it is a little bit easier to hide, because you know, you don't have an issue with still going, for example, to church because you believe in that. So on that aspect, being two religions or, you know, practicing witchcraft can actually be a lot easier for closeted Wiccans or closeted witches. So the thing is with Wicca, of course, is Wicca is very, very open. There's no harm in being a different religion. Wiccans are very, very open to practicing different things and practicing different religions, as long as you don't harm anyone, right? That's the basic idea of Wicca. So the main issue, I suppose, comes more from different religions towards witchcraft and Wicca, and that some religions are really, really against witchcraft, and hence Wicca. So it really depends. I think there are religions where it might be easier to incorporate them and to merge them, and then there's religions that might be a little bit more tricky to merge them together. But again, I mean, it's really up to you and what you make out of it. Is it possible? Absolutely. Do you have to? Absolutely not if you don't want to. It's absolutely up to you and you do you. So just keep that in mind. And on my personal opinion, I do want to throw that in there as well, just in case you're curious what I actually think. Personally, I don't think I could actually be two religions at once, but I just like to focus on one thing at a time, and I have just been Wiccan for most of my life, so for me it's just what I am. And I didn't necessarily grow up with Christianity too much anyway, so for me it's never been an issue. I know some people have been, for example, Christian their entire life, and then they find Wicca and they really love it, but what about their religion that they grew up with? Then it's a little bit of a more complicated situation. What should you do? I don't have that. I think that might be lucky, I suppose, because I never had this complication. Not in a negative sense, of course, but I think you understand what I mean, right? I also grew up in a very, very open family towards witchcraft and Wicca, especially because my family basically is all witchcraft and you know, esoteric and new age and all that stuff. Like we've always practiced, for example, the tarot. I guess I'm very lucky in that regard. Other people might not be, and that's where the confusion comes from. That's where the question comes from, can I merge these two religions? I really like both. If you're comfortable with it, go for it. If you believe that you can be two religions at the same time, why not? If you don't think you can be two religions at the same time, then you probably can't. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's up to you. I don't think anyone can give you a straight up yes or no answer, even though maybe someone came for exactly that, looking for exactly that. I just don't think it's possible. I think you have to look within yourself and find your own truth and discover which one is just closer to your heart, which one you're more comfortable with if you don't want to choose. If you're fine with merging, merge, you know, go for it. But if you don't like merging, if you don't think you can be two religions at the same time, then you might have to make a decision. And there's nothing wrong with switching religions, as long as you have really put your heart into it and dedicated yourself to it, at least for some time, so that you really understand what you are actually doing and that you gave it a fair chance. I personally am very much like, if you're doing something, you might as well do it 100%, but that's just me. And really, I mean, it's really up to you. And yeah, so I do hope this video was at least somewhat helpful and it didn't make even more confusion for you. Feel free to comment in the comment section. We can discuss this. I'm trying to reply to every one of you, and also on Instagram, if you want to discuss it a little bit more personal, you can do that as well. I'll leave all my links below. And if you would like to support me and my channel, I do have a crystal shop where I also make crystal jewelry and sacred mala or prayer beads, so if you would like to check that out, also in the description box, everything's in the description box. So yeah, I'm wishing you all a blessed time and a blessed day. Thank you and see you later.